Well, before we go on any further, we're now cutting across live to Moscow, where Russian President Vladimir Putin is holding his annual press conference. Putin had skipped the press conference last year after Russia started what it calls special military operation in Ukraine. But today, he will also be taking questions from Russians. These are the live visuals that we're getting right now. Let's cut across to Moscow.
Safety on our borders, strengthening our social sovereignty, public sovereignty. That means absolute observation of the rights and freedoms of our citizens, of strengthening our political system, parliamentarism, and finally, that is providing security and sovereignty in economic and technological sphere. Well, I don't think that in responding to this question, I don't need to cover all of these matters, but I'm quite positive that the audience that we have here and the rest of the country is fully aware that Russia cannot exist without it. Financial, economic, and technological sovereignty is the future of any country, including Russia. So if we talk in concepts, these are the main dimensions. Let's turn to economy. Many in the world have been surprised that the Russian economy did not collapse under the burden of the so-called pressure, sanctions, pressure from our former so-called partners. But it's apparent that they have the goal to push Russia to the limit and to make it buckle. So what kind of resilience does the Russian economy have? It's resilient enough not to only feel quite confident, but to move forward. And this resilience, well, we've discussed it many times as well, but I'll repeat myself. That is ensured by several components. The first one, and the most important one, is the tremendous consolidation of the Russian society. The second thing is sustainability of financial and economic system of the country. It came as a surprise to our so-called partners, and honestly to many of us as well, that over the past decades, Russia has gained this resilience and sustainability in finance and economy. And the third component, naturally, is greater capacity of our forces, security forces and the army. And if we talk about the economic indicators, specific indicators, what can we be proud of? Well, as per usual, I brought a table over. There is nothing special that we don't know, but I think that yesterday, Finance Minister voiced several indicators yesterday. The main indicator is growth of GDP of our economy at the end of the year is expected at 3.5%. That is a good indicator. That means that we bounced back from the dip last year. I think we stood at it at 2.1%. If this year we gained 3.5%, that means we bounced back and made quite a significant step forward. Unfortunately, we have inflation growth. That is so, and we expect 7.5% at the end of the year, maybe even higher, reaching almost 8%. The central bank and the government are taking all the necessary measures, and we can discuss that later. We can talk about the increase in interest rates and so on, other measures that the central bank and the government are undertaking, and we hope that we can go back to the targeted level of inflation. Industrial production is growing confidently, 3.6%, but what's especially makes us happy, manufacturing 7.5%. That is year-on-year growth. This is an unexpectedly high rate. And what makes us especially positive is 10% growth investment into main capital, fixed capital. That means that today we have apparent growth in GDP and industry, plus 10% in fixed capital investments. That means that midterm we have ensured our sustainable growth. There will be new jobs created, expansion of industry, and so on. As for unemployment, I'll speak about that later. The profit stands at 24% of the industry, let alone banks. They are going to earn almost 3 trillion rubles, even more. Of course, I know that in this audience and from around the country that, yes, the banks are doing fine. They're going through fat years. But those people who are storing their money in Russian banks, that's good news for them. The sustainability of the Russian banking and financial system. Now on to real wages. It's going to increase by about 8% year on year without inflation.
Well, this will not be a universal picture across the country, but more or less these are specific, precise statistics, and the real disposable incomes of our people will also be growing. There are more components therein, but it's going to be about 5% growth. The unemployment rates. Recently, we were proud of record low levels of 3% of unemployment, and yesterday, while getting ready for today's talk, we saw that it stood at 2.9%. We've never seen that low unemployment before. This is a very good integrated or aggregate parameter of the overall economic performance. When I spoke about the real disposable incomes rise, I must mention that starting from the 1st of January, we will increase the minimum wage by 18%, which is not something that we do frequently. The public debt has been shrinking, which also testifies to the macroeconomic and financial stability. The public debt slumped from 46 to 32 billion USD, and the private external debt also has dwindled. All our companies have been repaying on schedule. It went down from $337 billion to 297. So the repayment is on time, sometimes even before, ahead of schedule. Well, the aggregate social parameters also will talk a lot about social and welfare matters today, but there is a comprehensive parameter of the life expectancy growth. In 2021, the life expectancy in this country was 70.06. In 2022, 72 and 73.73. And in 2023, we expect the life expectancy at 74 years, so which is an indicator showing that we are doing fine in terms of our welfare and social policies and economic policies. The other day, you awarded some of the heroes of Russia, and you said that the guys should be spared, but we should continue pressing. For 2 years, we have been living amidst the special military operation, so we receive a spate of questions from everybody on that. What is your take on these 2 years? What is the current pace? What the goals may be? Are they the same or have they changed? And when we will arrive at peace? The peace will come when we reach our goals that you have mentioned. And coming back to the goals, they remain unchanged. I will remind you, it means denazification, demilitarization of Ukraine and its neutral status. Let's have a look from the perspective of denazification. During the negotiations that followed after the preparation of a draft of possible agreement back then, that was mentioned by the Kiev authorities the other day. Well, on the whole, they did not agree. They needed some denazification, saying that there was no Nazism growth in that country. Well, how come their national hero is a well-known Nazi figure, Bandera, who has been proclaimed a national hero? How come that? Yes, they do have it. And when today's head of presidential office in Kiev, before the whole world gives a round of applause to a former SS soldier that participated in Holocaust, which was the extermination of 1.5 million of Jews, Poles and Russians, and gave him a standing ovation. Is it not a manifestation of Nazism? So denazification is an irrelevant thing. During those talks, we were told that, well, actually they would not rule out enacting some legal acts. That was during that series of talks in Istanbul. Now, with respect to demilitarizing Ukraine, unless they want to come to terms peacefully, we have to take some action, including military action. But today, Ukraine virtually produces or manufactures nothing. They have been trying to maintain their manufacturing capability, but, actually they have been importing things for free, freeloading. But, it will come to an end sooner or later. Well, they will keep receiving some aid, but, the annihilation continues. With respect to aircraft and air defense systems, they received like 420 or 30 tanks, as had been promised. Everything had been delivered. I mean, all the things that the Westerners had promised were supplied, but all of that was annihilated. 747 tanks were destroyed as of last night. Since the start of the counter-offensive, around 2,300 armored personnel vehicles of different types. So this is demilitarizing. Either we come to terms on the specific military parameters, and we did agree upon these parameters that were put into the litter bin later. And so we have other opportunities, either to come to terms or to have our way compellingly. Well, a short question, a brief question, whether there will be a second wave of mobilization. I know it is a sensitive matter. So look, we had some partial mobilization. We recruited 300,000 people. And at the outset, there was a great deal of irony and derision. They were called recruits, but they have been doing an excellent job. Now we have 14 heroes of Russia out of those people recruited back then.